What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel for a third time in the same day. I'm crazy. I don't know what's going on, but I just want to get this info out for all of you. So a couple days ago, I made the video about the patch notes and how all these different gun changes were coming, and I kind of talked through how they would kind of impact the meta. But I wanted to confirm everything before I actually went into super detail and talked about all the changes and what I thought the new meta guns were going to be. Plus, there's some things in here that are like intangibles, like AK-47 gun kick adjusted. What does that mean? Well, I wanted to actually feel it before I said what that would change about the gun, obviously. So now I've done that. I've played with all these guns. I have all the data up to date and fully tested, not just assumed from the patch notes. So everything on the website now is up to date as far as these changes are concerned. So we're gonna go through it today for the third time today. If you like the content, drop a sub and a like and a comment and support the channel as well as supporting the website. Let's get into it and let's talk about the real patch notes for this this patch as of today. So first off, we got this AK-47 from Black Ops Cold War. It says gun kick adjusted. They don't even tell what that means. But I speculated that probably meant it was a visual recoil change, and that's exactly what it was. So the AK-47 has much better visual recoil now. So it's a lot easier to use, like the 3X instead of the SUSAT, just because the base visual recoil is a lot more stable than it was before. So that's just a nice plus for the AK. AK has very good TTKs. It just had kind of hard to control recoil and a lot of visual recoil. So this reduces that visual at least and really helps it out to feel more controllable. Next up is the FARA 83. So we'll go look at the website now and compare the pre-nerf FARA to the current FARA. All right, so the FARA got a nice nerf. I don't really know why I got this big nerf because I didn't feel like it was overpowered before. I mean, it was good. It was a top tier gun, but it wasn't overpowered. Before it was 39 to the head and then 29 neck, chest, stomach, and extremities. So it had the same profile everywhere. They've changed that up now. So now in that first damage range, it's 39-30. So it actually does 1 more damage to the neck, but 2 damage less to the chest, 4 damage less to the stomach, and 4 damage less to extremities. And the second drop off, before it was 35-26 all the way down. And now it's 35 to the head, 27 to the neck. So you get 1 more damage to the neck again, 25 to the chest, 23 stomach, 23 extremities. So a pretty big nerf in terms of damage values here, and no buff at all in any other way. So I don't really know why they did this so much, because it was not, in my opinion, overpowered before. What this does is it brings the chest TTK up a little bit in the first damage range. It doesn't actually change the TTK in the second damage range for chest shots. Stomach shots are going to be quite a bit worse. So your DPS on stomach shots is a lot worse than it was before. This is about 80 milliseconds slower in TTK, which is just a lot. I don't know. They could have used maybe a slight DPS nerf and just leave the TTK the same or something. I don't know. Same with extremities. Extremities also got a pretty big nerf. So the FARA got hit pretty hard. I would say that kind of kicks it out of the meta now, unfortunately. It was not an easy gun to use before. It just killed fast. And I like those kind of guns being in the game because they allow you something to master if you want to try to have an advantage on the competition. But now the FARA is kind of just kicked out of the meta in my opinion. So the Krig. Earlier today, I made an entire video on the Krig, so if you want to see that, the Krig got absolutely destroyed. The recoil's so much stronger now, and the damage got reduced a little bit. I don't know why they did both those things. It was already a kind of a lower, like a worse TTK gun. So low recoil made sense. It was just too low, but they increased it by like 4 times, which is just crazy. So I already covered that. You can go watch that video if you're interested in that. QBZ, recoil increased slightly, recoil dampening enabled. I don't have measure of this, unfortunately, so I didn't have anything to compare to, but QBZ still feels pretty easy to control. I don't see it being kicked out of the meta because of this change. It's still a pretty good gun, still has decent TTKs, and still one of the more controllable guns of the group. Recoil dampening enabled, I think, was potentially like a visual recoil kind of thing, another one of those kind of like shaking effects or something, so maybe it has slightly less visual recoil before, but I didn't really use the QBZ at all before. So you guys in the comments, if you have any comments on the QBZ after this patch, let me know what you think about the changes, because honestly, I wasn't a QBZ user, so I feel like these two things I don't have a whole lot of good say on as far as how they changed it, or if it's a lot worse or a lot better. So just say in the comments how you feel it changed. And then as far as the OTS, again, I've gone over this, but let's go look at the TTK charts and see how this actually changes all the numbers compared to the other SMGs. All right, so as I've said million times in the last 2 weeks, the OTS was like the most overpowered SMG we've ever had. It had by far the best TTKs. It also had the best mobility, tied for the best mobility. Had good ADS times, great, just really fast reload time. It was just the best SMG, no question, as far as SMGs go. So it got hit pretty hard with this nerf, but I still think it's a pretty good SMG. We'll compare it to some other guns as well to get a feel for where it sits now. But We get the pre-nerf on the left. So before it did 45 head and 45 to the neck, which gave you this huge head hitbox essentially, which made you have crazy fast TTKs. I did 34 chest, 34 stomach, and 30 extremities. Now it does 47 to the head, so it does a little bit more headshot damage, but completely removed the neck shot multiplier. It does the same as the chest damage now. Same as stomach, and then extremities is down at 27. So 3 damage nerf on chest, stomach, and extremities, and a 14 damage nerf on the neck shot. So pretty dramatic change there. But let's add a couple other SMGs that are fast killing and compare those to the OTS. All right, so I've added some of the other fastest killing SMGs in the game. We've got the OTS 9, MP7, MP5 from Modern Warfare, MP5 from Cold War, and PPSH on this chart. Those are some of the fastest killing SMGs, so I thought they'd be good to compare to the OTS. So we're looking at chest shots right now, 250 health. What we standard start on here. So the MP7, the Cold War MP5, and the OTS all have exactly the same chest shot TTK, roughly. I mean, close enough that it's negligible. OTS obviously has less range than both the MP7 and the Cold War MP5, but not by a dramatic amount on the Cold War MP5, about a meter. OTS is going to have the best mobility of the three by a little bit, followed by the Cold War MP5, and then followed by the MP7. MP7 will be slower, but it has a bunch more range. And it's also probably a little more accurate, it has better iron sights, so it's going to be better for longer ranges. But it does have those awesome TTKs up close compared to like the PPSH. I think the MP7 is a very good sniper support still, currently even this far into the game. And then the new TTK champion, or the return of the TTK champion, is the Modern Warfare MP5. So the cyan line here down at the bottom, Modern Warfare MP5 is now the fastest to kill SMG again. So it'll be basically, if you want better mobility, go with the OTS. But if you want the best TTKs, the Modern Warfare MP5 is going to be where you want to go now. It's going to absolutely shred compared to these other guns. The OTS is still decent. It's still decent. We switch over to headshots. The OTS and the Cold War MP5 are tied for first, followed by the Modern Warfare MP5 and the MP7. And then the OTS or the PPSH is quite a bit slower there. Let's look at like extremities as well, just to get one last data point. OTS on extremities again is tied with the Cold War MP5 and faster than Modern Warfare MP5. So really, if you take you're not going to hit all chest shots. So if you kind of use like the advanced TTK calculator, you're going to see that the OTS is going to be very, very similar to the Modern Warfare MP5 and the Cold War MP5. All three of those are going to be really, really quick, and followed by the MP7 by a little bit, and then PPSH behind that again. So really, all three of them are good options. Best mobility is OTS. Best hip fire is probably Modern Warfare MP5. I really don't think you should use the Cold War MP5 at all still. I think the OTS is just better than the Cold War MP5, but I think a case could be made for the Modern Warfare MP5 again now. The Tech 9 also got a damage nerf, so let's go look at the TTK chart for that. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to use the same chart, so I'm just going to add the Tech 9. I have both the Tech 9 and the pre-nerf Tech 9 as well. It's just they're kind of in a different spot because of the way this works. So this is only a nerf for the full auto mode of the Tech 9. So you'll see the pre-nerf in the damage drop-off drop down here. And keep in mind, this doesn't actually change what loads on the final TTK chart page. This is just so you can view the difference in damage profile here on this page. So there's no point in selecting it here. All you have to do is actually select the muzzle on this page. You can get pre-nerf here or just a full auto repeater there for the current version. So this got a little bit of a nerf, so let's compare it to the other SMGs. With the changes, it was really kind of a PPSH competitor. It was like a longer range SMG that kind of had hard to control recoil but melted up close. So now it's this pink line here. Quite a bit slower than it used to be. It used to be down probably at like the MP7 level. It was very, very quick to kill. And that made it kind of worth using over top of those other guns because it had more range and really, it wasn't very accurate, but it had really good TTKs and a lot of range. Now it's kind of like, it's probably just better to use a PPSH. PPSH has better mobility, has way more damage per mag, and very, very almost identical TTKs. So let's look at extremities real fast, see how that compares to the PP. Again, it's the same as the PPSH. It's like 10-15 milliseconds slower, faster than the PPSH in the first drop off, and then past 14 meters, the PPSH is faster everywhere. So again, I kind of think this makes the Tech 9 not really worth using, unfortunately. I think for the most part, the PPSH is going to be the go-to for that kind of role as an SMG now. All right, so next up is the LMG change to the Stoner. So they say they adjusted the recoil, adjusted the gun kick. I still don't know what raise interrupt time is, so I don't know what that is. They increased the recoil slightly. Again, I don't have recoil plots from before, but I can say I've used it now and felt it, and it does feel like a little more recoil, but it's still absolutely a meta gun. Very, very good. Gun kick as well was a visual recoil change, and same story there. It does have more wobble, a little more visual recoil than it used to, but with that 4x, it still doesn't have hardly any at all. So definitely still absolutely a meta gun. I think the Stoner is going to be one of the very best guns for the new Iron Trials mode that I just made a video about earlier today. I think it's going to be an absolute S tier weapon for that mode and still for regular BR. So despite these changes, still a fantastic weapon. Next up is the Cold War AUG. So the Cold War AUG went through a lot of changes back in the day when it was way overpowered. Basically, in the end, they made the recoil not recenter. As if you shot it as fast as you could, the recoil would keep climbing. It wouldn't recenter back to the same point every time. Basically, what this recoil decrease slightly did was it makes it recenter to the same point every time. So that's actually a huge deal for these guns. It takes them from being unusable to being at least somewhat viable. I compared the AUG to the M16, and they're very similar. The AUG has slightly faster TTKs, but I would say slightly more recoil and slightly more aim sway. Very similar guns though, like hardly differentiated at all. The one thing, the Cold War AUG has a little bit better neck shots, so that's one thing to consider. It does do a little bit more damage. It does shoot a little bit faster. With all these changes, they increased the. On the next page, you'll see they made the barrels have faster fire rate than before. The titanium barrel has a little bit faster fire rate for both the M16 and the AUG. I think with these changes, they're kind of viable. They're not good. They're not the Stoner. They're not the XM4, but they're very good. So I think they're usable again. I would not say they're meta, but if you love burst guns, I think you could get away with using these guns again now. So in summary, AK-47 got better. It was already very good. It got a little bit better. FARA got a lot worse, out of the meta completely. Krig, a lot worse, out of the meta completely. QBZ still very good, but slightly worse than it was. Still a meta weapon. OTS 9, worse than it was, but just kind of where it should have been now. It's still a great gun. Still one of the best guns, one of the best SMGs. Unfortunately, the Tech 9's changes, I think, did kind of hurt it a little bit. It's still okay, and you can still make a case for it as like a really aggressive kind of mid-range SMG. But in most cases, the PPSH is probably going to just be better for you. It has better mobility and very similar TTKs, and then better TTKs at longer ranges. So Tech 9 got hit pretty hard here, I think. It doesn't look like a big change, but it does affect the TTKs quite a bit. So that's kind of sad because I like the Tech 9 a lot. Stoner's still very good. A little bit more recoil, but still absolutely a meta weapon. And then the tactical rifles are a little bit better. Sneaking back up there. They're in the viable category now. But let's go talk about what I think the absolute best guns in the game are right now in this meta for long range. All right, I've built what I think are potentially the 6 best guns in the meta right now for how I play, at least. I didn't put the QBZ on here, but just the QBZ is the lowest recoil, slower killing gun out there. I do have the M13 on here, which is kind of that category as well, but overall, QBZ is probably the best for that kind of weapon. The M13 has like slightly better TTKs than the QBZ. So overall, I only have 6 guns on this list, but really there's a lot of good guns right now. I feel like this patch was actually really good. Overall, we have a ton of different options. The one thing that sticks out to me is really the Stoner still. I think the Stoner is going to be nasty. I think the XM4 is going to be pretty nasty as well. So that's not to say I don't think you can use the other guns. I think we're very close to a balanced meta as far as the game's been in the past, at least. So let's just go through these real fast. This is 250 health chest shots again. M13, EM2, and C58, and M13 and XM4. So those are the 4 guns there. They're all about the same, all the way out to about 33 meters, and then the XM4 drops off and it has a slower TTK there. These are all meta builds, by the way, so these are the build recommendations as well. The M13 expands all the way out with the same TTK to 50 meters, so that's a really big benefit of the M13. But then past that distance, the XM4 is a little bit faster than the M13. And obviously, I've talked about this a million times, but the XM4 has that 100% headshot neck shot damage, which is huge. It basically gives you a really big head hitbox, whereas the M13 has no neck shot multiplier at all. So that's a really important thing. I think that's more important than we think. I think people think they're really accurate and they mostly hit chest shots, but I don't think that's the case. I think you're kind of just shooting at the target in general and you kind of hit what you hit. So I think you are going to mix neck shots in there. You are going to mix leg shots in there, things like that. So I think it's important to take those things into account. So the XM4, because of that next shot, I think is absolutely a meta weapon right now. But the M13 is a really, really accurate beamer, has way less recoil than the XM4, and you can get away with using the Scout Combat, which says 2.1x on the website. That's just because I haven't updated the Axial 3x from back before when it was like a sniper scope. It's really more like a 1.75x scope now. When you're on affected FOV, if you're on console, that's not the case. So if you're on console, you're using independent FOV. Axial 3x will still be the 2.7x, and Scout Combat would be more like a 3x. So Scout Combat will still be more than the Axial if you're on console, but not dramatically more. Whereas if you're on PC playing on affected FOV, the Scout Combat optic has way more zoom than the Axial 3x. So it's actually really nice, especially for low recoil guns. It really allows you to just beam people at range. And there's only a few guns you can get away with using that on. They really have to have low recoil because there's a lot of visual bounce and a lot of recoil correction that has to happen when you have that much zoom. If you're confused about that independent versus affected FOV stuff, leave a comment below and let me know, and I can do a video on that and explain it in more detail. I've done tons of videos in the past, but it's always worth doing a refresher if people are new people to the channel, haven't seen those, or if you're just confused about it, let me know. Cold War AK has fantastic TTKs. It's the cyan line. You can see chest shots. It still has the best TTKs across the board and extends all the way out to 38 meters. So it's a pretty long damage drop off. C58 matches the Stoner in terms of chest shot TTK and then drops off quite a bit to be a little bit slower than the XM4 out past 37 meters. Still a really good gun. Easier to control than the EM2, I would say, by a decent amount. So that's a big benefit that it has. Let's go look at extremities just to get a good picture of which guns have like that 5.56 damage profile where it does the same versus not having that. So Cold War AK again comes out on top. I think Cold War AK has definitely snuck into the long range meta, especially with the visual recoil reduction. The one thing it doesn't beat the XM4 in is those neck shots. It does have a neck shot multiplier, so it's still faster than most of the other guns. But the XM4's neck shot multiplier matching the headshot is crazy. You just get fantastic TTKs, and that really does change the effective TTK of the weapon because you do hit some of those shots. Overall, Stoner's just middle of the pack everywhere, but it has such low recoil and such a long range. It goes all the way out to 59 meters before it has a drop off, so that makes it really, really good for that kind of situation. On headshots, M13, everyone knows the M13 has good headshot multiplier, so it basically matches the AK for the fastest, slightly faster than the XM4 even in headshots, and it does have one of the longest damage drop offs. So I think with these changes, I think the M13, I know people probably... I feel like people make fun of the M13 all the time for some reason, maybe because it hits, like, it doesn't hit heavy, but that's because it shoots really fast. It still puts out a lot of damage, still has good TTKs, really easy to control because of how fast it shoots and how little recoil there is. I prefer it over the Grau, personally. I know the Grau has better damage per mag, but they have almost identical TTKs, except the M13 has better headshot multiplier. So I don't see why the M13 gets hate. I think it's actually a really good gun. And I think it fits into the meta now in some capacity at least. It's not the best, but it's definitely one of the best guns. The Grau is still really good. The M4 is still really good. Like I said, the QBZ is really good. Ram 7, if you control the recoil, is going to be great. Really, I think Cold War AK, XM4, M13, C58, EM2, QBZ, Stoner, all totally meta weapons that you can use if you want to. So try them out, see which one you like, and make your decision for yourself, because honestly, they're all really good. Alright guys, first time I've ever done 3 videos in a day, pretty crazy. I also have to go make 2 sponsored segments right after this, so I'm not even done yet. But I'm trying harder than I ever have before, honestly. I've worked really hard for a year and a half on all this stuff, but most of it was behind the scenes. Like, you didn't see it because it wasn't coming out in YouTube videos so much, but the website has been a tremendous amount of work from the start. So people are thinking that I'm, like, gonna burn out because I'm making so many videos, and that's not really the case. It's just that I'm making more YouTube videos rather than working on the website behind the scenes and programming or collecting data. But I appreciate the support as always. I love doing this. I really do. So I'm so thankful that you guys support it and allow me to keep doing this. So I'll see you guys all probably tomorrow. We'll see. I don't know if I'm going to take the day off or not. I pretty much just play it day by day, every single day. So we'll see you then. I don't know when it's going to be, but thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.